What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Eagles on the Air, the Salesian High School podcast brought to you straight from our broadcast studio. I'm your host, Steve Sallustio, and I've got a great guest for you today. I'd like to introduce from the class of 2006 and our current Dean of Students, Mr. Chris Fraticelli. Chris, thank you for coming on Eagles on the Air.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm excited to hear what you have to say about a wide variety of things. I know we met earlier today, kind of like I got my cheat sheet here, but we're going to cover some pretty cool stuff. And I want to start by asking you the same question I've asked each of our guests so far. What is your Salesian story? What brought you here? How did you come to first enter the world of Salesian?
Well, my Salesian story, much like all my stories, got to give the glory first to God, because He kind of puts you right in the path that you belong. So without a shadow of a doubt, that's kind of where my story starts. I was actually much younger than my freshman year. I had first gotten involved with Salesian, and being here on campus, probably in middle school, I had a good friend who I'm still great friends with today, who his father was a fireman, and they had a picnic here. He invited me along, and I can remember to the moment. I remember walking down the big hill with an ice cream cone in my hand, thinking, I'm gonna go to high school here, which I don't necessarily recommend for anybody as their way to choose a high school. But like I said a moment ago, this was a way that was kind of paid for me in advance. So that was kind of how I started, and I knew at that moment I was going to be part of Salesian High School.
All right, so let's put somebody on the spot. Who was the friend, and who was it?
Dr. Stephen Arosa. He didn't choose Salesian High School, which is fine, good guy. But like everybody plays a role in your story, and that he definitely played the role in mine.
All right, so tell me, where did you come from? What middle school were you at, and how did you end up, visiting as an 8th grade or even 7th grade student? How did you get to eventually come to Salesian?
So I was fortunate. Like I said, I was convinced Salesian High School was the place for me regardless. So I was fortunate enough, though, that I had a lot of friends who also were choosing Salesian High School. I went to St. Teresa in the Bronx. We had a lot of guys, probably 7 or 8 from that class, that decided to go to Salesian. So I had a lot of those individuals close to me there, which was helpful. And it became kind of like a neighborhood spot for us. There was a lot of guys a couple years older, a couple years younger, kind of all decided on Salesian at the time. That's
pretty cool. And St. Teresa, present day, continues to be a school that we get a bunch of students from. One of the guests on the podcast, Beth Orecchio, is from St. Teresa Parish. Her 2 sons came to Salesian and graduated from St. Teresa as well. So great relationship between the 2 schools. All right, so we picked Salesian. It's freshman year. Tell me, what did Chris Fraticelli do at Salesian High School? What filled your days?
Early on, I think I was kind of like a lot of the other guys. I would blend in pretty easily. I wanted to kind of just do my thing, enjoy school, and kind of be here every day and just take part in it. I really didn't. Nothing stood out early on. But as I got older, the leadership qualities and abilities were kind of being formed here between the students, the staff, my teachers. Everybody kind of played a part in helping to form me. And before you knew it, I went from kind of just blending in and doing little things here and there to being a big part of leadership. I was invited on the leadership retreats. I was a baseball player for 3 out of my 4 years. I did student council, yearbook, all the things that we want to see the guys kind of get involved in and take ownership in the community. I tried my best to kind of get my hand in all those things. So it ended up going from nothing to kind of a lot of things all at once.
That's pretty great, because again, even today, we encourage the boys, get involved in something outside of the classroom. You might be a straight A honors student. You might be here on a full scholarship. You might be here, because the athletic program was attractive to you. But we encourage them all, do something outside the classroom. Student government is a great example. We just selected by, and I think we should say here at the time of filming, it's pretty much the end of May, and we've just voted on our new student government.
Right.
Shout out to Quincy Morrison and Jorge Bello, who are going to be the president and vice president of the student council next year. But yeah, student government is a great way. The leadership that we try to teach here, great way to get them involved, get them physically doing something, and they're going to take those qualities right on to college.
Absolutely.
So you had 4 great years here. I know you're from a pretty popular class, that class of 2006. I know a bunch of the guys, either from the neighborhood back in the Bronx or from working here. Some of the guys, a couple of guys from 06 worked here, coached here. I'm thinking about Joey Della Carpini, was our coach, golf coach for a little bit. Nick Sabino worked with me in the advancement office for a little bit. So it's a great group of guys. I lived right down the block from Rob D'Alessandro. His younger brother Vinny is a teacher here. So it's a great group. You graduate in 2006. Tell me now, what happens?
So after Salesian, I decided I was going to move on. I was going to go to college. I went to Concordia College over in Bronxville. I finished in 4 years, did my undergrad, business administration with a focus in sports management, and then immediately transitioned then to get my master's in Manhattanville University right after, and I focused completely on sports management there.
And now, earlier today, we were talking, and I didn't even know this. Now, we've been working together for a few years. I think I mentioned your role right now as the current Dean of Students, and this is your third year as the Dean of Students. I didn't know that you told me that you worked for several professional sports teams. Tell me a little bit about that. I stopped you while we were talking downstairs because I want to hear this in real time.
So my dream from being a young person, probably maybe even before my freshman year here at Salesian, I loved baseball. I grew up on baseball. It was something that me and my friends loved to not just play, but like just really watch, be involved in. And I fell in love with the business of baseball, the business behind the game. I would love to have said that I'm going to grow up to be an outfielder, in the major leagues, but I kind of knew that wasn't really the path that was going to be for me. I was a decent player, but I certainly wasn't going to the majors. So I immediately fell in love with the business side of it. So from that point on, I knew there was studies that you can kind of take that route going and try to get into that field, and that was the path I took. Right after college, and even kind of in college, I began doing some internships, which then eventually led to some employment. I was with the New York Rangers in the NHL. I was with the Arena Football League. I was with the New York Mets, the New York Yankees, and even the Washington Nationals.
Now, I know the answer to this question. Mets or Yankees?
Oh, the New York Mets.
Absolutely. Juan Soto, baby. Belongs in blue and orange.
That's right.
So, all right. So that sounds exciting. And it sounds actually similar to not similar because I didn't get a chance to work with professional organizations, but right out of college, I got a job working at Maritime College, and I was working in the athletic department, and I thought it was a dream. Oh, I love sports. Now I can have a full-time job in an athletic department. I thought I was riding high, and it was absolutely not for me. I realized right off the bat, I think I spent 2 years there, this isn't for me. And thus my career at Salesian High School began. That was in 2000, right after you graduated in 2006. I feel like, much like me, you must have had a change of heart and said that the business side of sports also is not for me. And I'm assuming that led to a career change or a pivot into education. Am I on the right track saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. I told the guys during career day we had here, you should absolutely pursue your dreams. But there's no deadline on when you should stop pursuing that. That's something that's internal and something you kind of will figure out on your own. There came a point that I said, I love what I'm doing. I love the thought. I want to make it. And I'm still convinced that if I had the time, that I would have made it. But there came a point that I said, what do I want out of life? And what I wanted out of life was at some point to be able to settle down, have a family, own a home. And pursuing my dream wasn't getting me there. So something had to change. I've realized that, it was time to move on from that. And the opportunity then arose to kind of get into the field of education. And immediately, from the time I recognized that was going to be the next path, I realized that if the time ever came and the opportunity ever arose, I wasn't going to be at Salesian because I got into education. I wanted to get into education so I can be back at Salesian. That's how much of an impact the place had made on me, the staff made on me, my teachers made on me, and I knew that was where I kind of wanted to end up in a long-term career.
That sounds amazing. I love how you put that you didn't get into education you didn't get to Salesian.
Because I was in education, I got into education because I wanted to be back at Salesian.
Oh, good. I'm glad you said that one more time. That sounded amazing. I love it. And listen, I got to say, my humble opinion, I think you made the right decision in getting into education where you have the opportunity to work in front of young men, in particular at Salesian High School, each and every day, because you're a very relatable person. I see the way the kids interact with you, even as the dean of students, which big part of your job is discipline. You're very relatable. and you speak very well to the kids, always very respectful to the kids, and they reciprocate that respect. So I think you did, my, again, humble opinion, find the right field. And we're very lucky to have you here with us. But that career in education didn't start at Salesian.
Correct.
I know that there's one school that you want to talk about in particular. I have 3 schools here that you want to talk about, but one school in particular that gave you that first shot. Talk to me a little bit about that school.
So a handful of years ago, no, probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, I was given an opportunity to begin substitute teaching. That was, right after I kind of recognized where my career wasn't headed. So I decided to when I had this opportunity was around, I took it, and immediately kind of worked out very well. I was the Holy Cross School in the Bronx. We have guys currently here who were from there, who I knew as young, even younger men. And from there, I started substituting. Everybody kind of liked me. They thought I was doing a pretty good job. I had good interaction with the students. And then from there, went from subbing to part-time teaching to full-time teaching to then being at multiple sites. So kind of things escalated really quickly. Like even right now, less than 10 years ago, I was in the field of athletics. Mm-hmm. So things kind of went really quick.
I remember vividly when you told me, I got the call or an email from Mr. Z over at Holy Cross about coming in to speak to the kids at Holy Cross, and I think you found out somehow, and you were like, yeah, I'll take a ride with you. And I was like, okay, yeah. At that point, I was like, okay, the Dean of Students wants to come with me. Come take a ride. Well, I saw the reception you got from those boys, and I was like, oh, this just worked out really well. And luckily enough, we ended up, I think, 12 of those boys from Holy Cross are at Salesian High School right now. We've developed a great relationship with that school, and I'd like to attribute that directly to you and to the relationships you've made. And so much of that is the Salesian story, those individual relationships with principals, with teachers, with students and parents that go so far. And, they carry on for these years. And it's, again, I'm lucky and thankful that, we made that trip that day. So we leave Holy Cross, or you're working maybe at the same time, but we also want to give a special shout out to 2 schools.
That's right, absolutely. I ended up splitting my time between Holy Cross doing technology, and then I ended up going over to St. Francis Xavier, where I met a lot of, before I knew it, a lot of guys who would be at Salesian High School in the future, guys who are here right now and guys who have graduated recently. I did phys ed there for a handful of years, and then after the pandemic, hours kind of changed. Obviously, there was a lot of difficulties in a lot of schools, so I ended up being split amongst Holy Cross, and then also went to St. Clair's, which was really close to St. Francis Xavier, and now they've actually merged. So now they're just one school. But so I was at both of those independently, while also being at Holy Cross, and met a lot of great young men. Again, young men that a lot of them have now come through these hallways. Yeah, absolutely. Because I had that note here. It's got to be an interesting experience having had some of these boys as not even as 8th grade kids, probably even younger than that. In phys ed or in computer classes or whatever you were teaching or subbing their classes, and now having them as high school boys, you got to see a lot of their growth. Absolutely.
Which is a pretty unique perspective as well. So these career paths, Salesian High School, we try to say, prepares you for life, right? Do you feel like Salesian High School had a hand in your being guided through some of these different careers?
Without a shadow of a doubt. I was blessed enough to have some fantastic people that were here, that are still here today. Mr. Schoner, who still does an amazing job of working with the young men, and he is always raved about by our students. He played a great role, and he showed me, even though I had him for just a very short time in high school, he showed me such grace and helped out so much when I was struggling, and took time out of his personal schedule to help me out. That's a story that I remember 20 years later. And I was only in his class for a handful of weeks, mm-hmm. but he did his best to help get me through as best as possible, and I'll never forget that. And that's the kind of thing that I know Salesian High School has. That's something that's always been special, no matter who's there. The staff changes, right? Like, this is not the same staff that was here when I was a student, obviously. Some guys are younger. Some guys and girls are younger than me. So it's certainly not the same staff, but the message and the mission stays the same. That's pretty clear. Guys are clearly know that they are cared about here, and all 4 pillars our homes, our school, our parish, and our playground are always focused on.
I couldn't agree anymore. And in my 19 years, I've seen almost complete turnover in the staff. Now, two people in particular, and those two people, countless guys come back. They've graduated high school here. They've graduated college. They're in the workforce. They come back here. You know, they tell me they dropped their car off in Honda. They're waiting. They just wanted to say hello. And they all ask the same thing. Is Mr. Shona still here? They want to go say hello. Is Ms. Piazza still here? Yes, she is. They all want to go say hello. And I know that Mr. Shona and Ms. Piazza are just as excited to see those boys. The message here is strong because we've gone through principals and presidents, upper administrators. The message here is as strong as it ever was. I don't see that message ever changing. And I think that's really unique about Salesian High School. Unfortunately, there are certain schools that, people say, it used to be like this, it used to be like that. No one says that about Salesian High School. Everyone says the mission, the values, the education now is still as solid as it was 60, 70, 80, 105 years ago. So we're very proud of that. We're very proud of that. I'm glad you brought that up. But that leads me, we just spoke about staff turnover. Now we got something very, very big to talk about here. I mentioned that you are the present Dean of Students. And I use the word present. I didn't just say you're the Dean of Students because you're not going to be the Dean of Students for very long. Not in just a few weeks here. You've got some very, very, very big shoes to fill.
Yes, sir.
Because you are going to become the new director of admissions. You are going to be taking over for me.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. Those shoes are not that big. I don't have that kind of ego. But you will be transitioning. As I go over to the Office of Alumni Relations, you're going to be going over into the Office of Admissions.
Right.
Are you excited about that?
I'm so excited. It's going to be challenging, but you've set a great foundation for me going forward, and I'm ready for a new challenge. This has been a great challenge. It's been a fantastic experience, but I'm ready for something new, a new experience, a new challenge. And to be honest, I've been kind of advertising Salesian for a long time, way before I was even employed here. Even as I was teaching PE and technology, I was always talking to the young men in particular, you need to check out Salesian. I'm not saying you have to go there, but check it out. Give them an opportunity. You're going to see a campus that you're certainly not going to expect. You're going to see staff that you certainly don't expect the way they care. You're going to see a building that you don't expect to see. And obviously, based off our numbers, a lot of guys took that opportunity to check it out and fell in love with it the same way that I did and a lot of other people have.
Yeah, I'm very confident that you're going to take everything that I was blessed with. I don't want to say being given, but given the opportunity to build an office, basically from scratch 16 years ago, and give you that framework and say, go ahead, take it from here. I feel like it's in great hands. I see the way you interact with our 8th graders whenever they're here spending a shadow day, or the visits that you've made to 8th grades with me. I see your interactions with the students and the principals and teachers in those schools. And I know that the Office of Admissions is in great hands, and we're going to look forward to growing that, not just continuing what we have here, but to make it bigger, make it better. You're younger than I am. Your beard is darker than mine. Keep it fresh, and then, just keep Salesian High School flying high. That's all we want to see. And I promise you, as you take my office, literally my office, I'm going to leave you everything. And I do have a TV in my office that I plan on taking. Oh, other than that, besides the TV and the fridge, I think almost everything else is yours.
It's all right. I needed a bigger TV anyway.
Yeah, it isn't that big. It's not that big. But you know what? Frat, as they call you, you've been a great friend while you're working here. I know we love talking baseball. We love talking Mets. I appreciate everything that you do and have done and will continue to do for Salesian High School. I loved some of the things you had to say here today. Anything else for the audience out there?
I really look forward to getting the opportunity to work with a lot of principals, a lot of parishes, get to show a lot of young men this campus. And I think going forward, we're going to have another 105 years of excellence.
Absolutely, and I plan on being here for all of them. Well, Frat, it has been an absolute pleasure. You were a great guest. I can't wait till this is aired so that everybody can see it. But until next time, this has been another exciting episode of Eagles on the Air.